I'm sitting here with Alex Gibney, the director of Gonzo, the life and work of Dr. Hunter S. Thompson. You know, it's interesting because you read the guy's writing and some of the stuff is so brilliant.
Right.
And then you see in the film what he was doing, how he was living, and it's everything. I mean, the Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas trunk of the car shot,
right,
with everything you could think of. Do you think he was fueled by, you know, how could he write like that? Do you think it was just the way his mind worked?
Well, I think partially. I mean, I think he may have been a kind of a bipolar character, and all of these substances may have given him a kind of equilibrium. At the same time, you know, like Charlie Parker, I don't think Charlie Parker was a great jazz musician because of the heroin. I think he may have medicated himself with the heroin. He maybe was that way despite it. I think Hunter, maybe his mind was briefly liberated because of hallucinogenic drugs, and maybe speed helped him get through deadlines. But I think he was a great writer because he was a great writer. I don't think it wasn't like the drugs were talking. It was Hunter talking.
Do you think that is in the film, he hits a point sort of where he crashes and he can't write anymore, or he thinks he can't write anymore?
Yeah, I mean, I think there were times after that when this is after he utterly fails in the Rumble in the Jungle to get the story. It's just an embarrassment.
He decides not to go.
To the fight.
To the fight.
He thinks it's a joke, right? Yeah, it turns out to be one of the great fights in history.
So he thought Ali was just going to get creamed?
He was going to get creamed. What was the point of going?
Do you think it was something else, though?
I think it was something else.
A lot of pressure on him
you
at
know
that
what,
point?
You know what else I think? There's a kind of subtext to that moment where so often Hunter backed the underdog with a great sense of idealism and possibility, and so often his heart was broken, right? And I think this time he decided he was going to spare himself the pain. The hard and cruel irony, though, is that this time the underdog won. You know, if he had gone to the fight, he could have stood up, you know, with his hands up high and said, "Oh my God, it works sometimes."
Yeah, Ali Boumbaye.
Boumbaye,
yeah.
Right.
But so, and from that point on, it almost seems like he sort of, I don't want to say something died in him, but he didn't have that kind of productivity and that fire.
No, he didn't.
Do you think that was partially the lifestyle, or?
Partially it was the lifestyle catching up with him. I mean, I think there were moments of greatness, but I think also, too, he, as Tom Wolfe says later in the film, he was trapped in Gonzo. You know, he had created this image, this character that he almost had to live up to. And it also made it more difficult for him to be the bystander. You know, suddenly he was too much the star. I think sometimes he used that to good effect. He would go in and like blow a foghorn in a restaurant, which is what Tom Wolfe remembered one time, and these huge antics that somehow would disarm people, and sometimes he'd get them to open up. But I think he became such a larger-than-life character.
Will the real Hunter Thompson please stand up?
Will the real Hunter Thompson stand up? That was before I understood what all that was going to mean.
What are we marking?
On 6 o'clock.
Oh, no, God. Help us, Jesus.
I know it's in my interest, maybe the interest of the greater good, for me to smoke a joint and calm down.
He was not afraid to rock the boat and to challenge the establishment and to express himself in unique and radical, sometimes shocking ways.
He described me as a half-crazed Davy Crockett running around the parapets of Nixon's Alamo.
We were all amused by him. He was an interesting guy to be around. He asked you unexpected questions.
Most people are surprised that I walk on two legs. I think people think I'm very much maybe a violent version of that comic strip.
You said you're familiar with the writing, but not super familiar with Hunter S. Thompson before this.
Look, I never knew the guy, and there were a lot of people I interviewed who knew him intimately. I don't claim to know him, but I did love the writing, and I did think there was something to say about it, and so I thought I could make a contribution. But then one of the things you do, one of the things I do whenever I make a film is to try to learn more. I mean, that's the great glory about being a documentary filmmaker. You get paid to learn. And so you talk to people and try to find out things. And we went through this treasure trove of materials that the estate had. And over time, you begin to form an impression and you begin to see things that you didn't see at the beginning. and there's a sense of exploration that's just really exhilarating.
So what happened to you through making this film?
I started taking massive amounts of drugs,
Hanging out
consuming a huge amount of alcohol, hanging around with starlets.
because that actually happened to, it seemed like it might have happened to Johnny Depp a little bit and to Bill Murray a little bit when they played these parts. I've actually heard that.
Well, I mean, I don't think Johnny Depp has any trouble, being a babe nag, let's face it. But I mean, I think that Johnny Depp literally shadowed Hunter. I mean, there's a room in Hunter's basement called Johnny's room. It's a tiny garret with a little cot-like bed and a tiny little window. He lived there for a month or so, and he shadowed Hunter every day. He shaved his head. He had the, cigarette holder, and so I think, Johnny, I think, has really inhabited Hunter's character and spirit. It's one of the reasons I was so adamant that he be the guy to read Hunter's words.
And then he's at the funeral.
You see him at the funeral at the end, but the only other time you see him on camera is when he's reading, which is right and proper.
Or the takes from the film.
Or the film.
Hollywood
He's
film.
in the film, right.
But did you sort of come away from this film, obviously you came away knowing a lot more about Hunter S. Thompson, but thinking sort of, did it change you in any way or make you think about things?
It made me think more about the American character. I mean, I really do think that Hunter, partly because who he was as a human being, I think he rocketed between, as Anita says, the good hunter and the bad hunter, but also because of how he perceived this country and how obsessed he was with the American dream, the Great Gatsby. He typed every word of it. And the character, and maybe I didn't realize this until also I had done Taxi to the Dark Side, but the character of this country, we're such a wild and bizarre mix of extremes between this sense of grand possibility and idealism and fear and loathing. There's that deep-seated, dark, violent streak that runs through American culture. But it's balanced at the same time by an equally high-minded sense of greater possibility. So that's what makes us such a dynamic place, I think. We're a frontier society. We've always lived by the gun. That's another thing that Hunter embraced, is
Absolutely.
the gun. I don't think you see that sense of extremes in Switzerland.
Right.
They
reined it in a little bit.
Right. Yeah, this definitely reined in.
The end of the film, not to give it away, but the end of the film really is unexpected in that, for me, it made me think so much about now.
Yeah.
I never would have sort of thought, oh my gosh, we're right back where we were then.
I think it's not only at the end of the film, it's in the middle. I mean, Nixon and Bush, there's this certain resonance, and I think there's also this hope that America will embrace the higher ideals. But the fact is that there is part of our own characters and part of our national character that often goes over to the side of fear and loathing.
All right, well, Alex, thank you so much for talking to us.
Yeah, movies that make you sick.
It's a great film. We loved it. It was really, it's.
I think it's funny too. I mean, I had some fun. The Ibogaine stuff I had completely forgotten about. That was really a blast.
My God, that was hilarious.
Yeah.
That's the thing, you get such a fondness for the guy by watching the film.
Totally. And I think everybody did. I mean, you could tell, all people had to do was think about him and they started to smile. Well, that's a great thing.
And just the mind and the sense, the spirit of play that he had.
Right. He had a spirit of play.
Yeah.
And that's a good way of putting it. Hunter knew how to play. And in times like these, it's important to remember how to play.
Alex Gibney, go see the movie Gonzo, The Life and Work of Dr. Hunter S. Thompson.